Hey everyone, due to popular demand, here is the long-awaited comparison between the RTX 4080 mobile and the RTX 5070ti mobile. The two least expensive ways to get a laptop with at least 12GB of VRAM. For this, I got two more or less identical MSI Vector 16 HXs laptops with strong CPUs and at least 32GB of RAM. The older MSI Vector comes with the Core i9 14900HX and the newer one with the new Intel Core Ultra 7 255HX. Both CPUs are pretty similar in performance, especially at 1440p and very high or ultra settings in newer games, which is what we'll test today. Interestingly, other than the results as we'll see soon, these two mobile GPUs do have a lot of differences when we take a look at the spec sheets. The 4080 in this laptop is allowed to pull up to 175 watt, while the 5070ti can only draw a maximum of 140 watt. Also, the RTX 4080 mobile does have a noticeably bigger amount of CUDA cores. While both share the same size considering the memory interface, the 5070ti mobile's bandwidth is much bigger since it's using the faster GDDR7, so we'll see if that's enough to even out the results. All games have been captured via an external capture card at the laptop's highest performance levels to prevent performance loss and will be presented in alphabetical order. And now, without further ado, let's have a look at the benchmarks. Today's video is brought to you by Eneba. You want really cheap games and you're tired of waiting for the next big sale just to grab your favorite game? Yeah, same here. That's why I've personally been using Eneba for years now and they've never let me down. It's a massive online marketplace where you can get legit game keys, software licenses and gift cards for way less than you'd pay in the official stores. We're talking Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo and more. It's all there. You just pick your platform, check out the low prices and get an instant delivery of your keys. No more FOMO, no more waiting for Black Friday or Steam sales. Whether you're looking for that one game everyone's talking about or you just need a cheap Xbox Game Pass subscription, Eneba's got you covered. And it's all digital, super fast and super simple with, in my opinion, the best user experience of all key shops. So next time you're about to overpay, maybe just don't? Check out Eneba instead today via my links in the description. For Assassin's Creed Shadows, I was using the integrated benchmark at ultra settings with DLSS on quality, but FrameGen was turned off at 1440p. The 4080 mobile was getting an average of 48 FPS and the 5070ti mobile was getting just 2% more with 49 FPS, but that's probably a margin of error here. However, it's clear that both of these GPUs do make use of more than 8GB of RAM in this scenario, and the laptops do actually use more than 16GB of RAM if you take a look at the OSD. While interestingly, the RTX 5070ti is using almost all its power and the 4080 isn't using much more than 130 watt in this game. Next up is the integrated benchmark for Cyberpunk 2077, and once again I was using the Ultra preset without upscaling this time, so no DLSS and no FrameGen at the resolution of 1440p once again. This time the average FPS is a bit higher for the RTX 4080 mobile with 48 FPS versus 82 FPS, so once again just a small difference of 2% in this case. And as we can see now, the 4080 is actually using almost all the power it can draw with up to 175, 176 watt even in some scenes. And as we can see, the RAM in both cases is less than 16GB this time. Also the VRAM is around 6GB of usage for both cards, even though I did not use DLSS in this case. Once again, the difference was super marginal for Far Cry 6 at the Ultra preset and the resolution of 1440p, just a small difference of 2 FPS once again, 133 for the 4080 and 135 FPS for the 5070ti with a difference of only now 1.5%. Once again, the RTX 4080 mobile is not using all the power it could potentially draw, while the 5070ti is actually doing that. The RTX 5070ti mobile was actually able to get a, well, small performance difference for Forza Horizon 5 using the Extreme preset with MSAA by 2, so I was not using DLSS, with around 135 FPS over 124 FPS for the RTX 4080 mobile. And that's, well, at least a difference of 9%, which is the biggest difference for today's video, by the way. Interestingly, both laptops were using more than 8GB of VRAM, and both of them were using more than 16GB of the regular system RAM to run this benchmark. For Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I was once again using the Ultra preset, this time with DLSS on quality, but frame generation was turned off at the resolution of 1440p. The RTX 4080 mobile was actually getting a pretty noticeable lead with 110 over 101 FPS, which is a difference of 9% in this case. For Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I was once again using the Ultra preset with DLSS on quality at 1440p, and here both systems were more or less behaving identical. 88 FPS for the RTX 4080 mobile and 89 FPS for the RTX 5070ti mobile, so we can really consider this identical. In this case, if you take a look at the actual live FPS, they are so identical or similar in most cases. Once again, the VRAM usage is a bit higher than 8GB for both cards after a while, but the RAM usage was much higher on the RTX 5070ti mobile laptop for some reason. I don't know why that happened, probably because this one has 64GB installed, and so the system is just going to use more because it can. For Monster Hunter Wilds, I was using the integrated benchmark, using the Ultra preset, which also uses DLSS on quality, but frame generation was turned off, once again with a resolution of 1440p. Now, in this case, the RTX 4080 mobile was able to get 76 FPS on average, but the RTX 5070ti mobile was getting a noticeable lead here with 81 FPS, so, well, it's at least a difference of 7% in this case. And as it seems, the game really does like VRAM and especially system RAM with over 20GB of RAM usage for both laptops. I was also testing the new remastered version for Oblivion, using the Ultra preset with DLSS on quality once more, and frame generation was turned off. Also, the hardware ray tracing was turned off as well. Resolution, once again, 1440p. 72 FPS for the RTX 4080 mobile and 71 FPS for the RTX 5070ti mobile, so I guess we can once again call this a margin of error or just a tie. While the RTX 4080 mobile is actually using quite some more power than the RTX 5070ti mobile in this game. The RTX 4080 mobile was able to get a small lead in Shadow of the Tomb Raider using the Ultra preset at 1440p without DLSS, with an average of 169 FPS over the 164 FPS of the RTX 5070ti mobile. And since this is an older game, both the VRAM and the regular system RAM are below 8 or 16GB here. In Star Wars Outlaws, I was once again using the Ultra preset with DLSS on quality and frame generation turned off at 1440p, and here the RTX 4080 mobile was able to get 7% more FPS with an average of 90 over the RTX 5070ti mobile's 84 FPS. Both laptops seem to use more than 8GB of VRAM after playing it for a little longer, so you have to keep in mind that this number can actually change in longer gaming sessions. I was also benchmarking the intro scene of The Last of Us Part 2 with the very high preset and DLSS on quality. Once again, frame generation was turned off at a resolution of 1440p. An average of 89 FPS for the RTX 4080 mobile and 95 FPS, which is a lead of 7% here, for the RTX 5070ti mobile. But once again, it seems as if the RTX 4080 mobile is not making full use of its TDP, because it's only using around 130-140 watt from the system, probably not taking advantage of dynamic boost here. And for Wukong Black Myth, I was using the very high preset with DLSS set to 75% resolution scaling at 1440p, which resulted in, once again, pretty similar or identical results: 62 FPS for the RTX 4080 mobile and 61 FPS for the RTX 5070ti mobile. And both the VRAM and the RAM usage haven't been as high as I expected, to be honest. And now, before we end this video, let's have a look at a, well, summary of the results for today. Alright, if we take a look at the summary of all 12 games I've tested, it looks like these two mobile GPUs are more than neck to neck. On average, they are basically the same, and it really depends on the game and the scenario. But all things considered, if both cost the same, the 5070 Ti mobile will most likely be the better choice because of its better efficiency, probably longer driver support, and, well, it can make use of multi-frame gen if that is something you'd use. Alright, and that's all for today, and I really hope I'll now finally have the time to actually review the new MSI Vector 16HX for the next video, so stay tuned or subscribe if you want to see that as well. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye bye and tschüss.